Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, hi everybody, and good morning to you. We are continuing here on the morning schedule. This week, Tuya will be out of town. It'll be mostly what I'm presenting to you, and we have 2 Zoom webinars coming up, and Michael will be putting them into the chat box. Tomorrow we have Identify as Being. It's a Zoom webinar, and that's in our morning here in Europe. And Friday we have the Cosmic Fire webinar, and then at night we'll be on the schedule for the normal Ask program. So 5 a.m. GMT, 5 p.m. GMT, and we'll see what happens by Saturday. We'll try to give you an announcement on that. For those of you in the United States, I'm glad you could show up now, because I know that except for the West Coast, it's pretty early. So I'm going to bring this over on this side, and we'll see what happens. Well, okay. We're starting, I think, well, it's certainly number 70. Anyway, it's that. And let's see, I think it's page 484. 484. We will see in just a moment what it is, but it's pretty close. We're not going to cover a lot, just basically 2 triangles this morning. And then next week, we're going to take up this fascinating but obscure subject of the zodiacal decanates. And I just want to say that in the same way that the different signs of the zodiac have 3 planets, generically 3 planets ruling, one for each 10-degree section of the zodiac, of the sign. So there's some kind of larger structure, which is interesting. And this larger structure, maybe you've heard about, has the entire zodiac as if it were one sign. And then 3 constellations of our familiar constellations rule the entire zodiac. And we'll, try to make a little sense out of that anyway. I think the important thing to know there is that there are 3 great signs of human consciousness, and they are in order. Let's see, it's Scorpio, Hercules, first ray; Christ, Pisces, second ray; the Buddha, Taurus, third ray. So that's what's called a cosmic decanate. A cosmic decanate rulers, and there's some obscurity around it. We don't even know what kind of zodiac he's using, but we do know it's a really important triangle for anybody that is on the path of discipleship and initiation, namely Scorpio, Pisces, and Taurus. And next week, I hope we'll be able to do that. This week, we're going to do something maybe a little bit preliminary for that. So just quickly here, to welcome you just briefly, and to say hi, Anne and Anna and Ann Parker and Annette and Brennan, hi, and Catherine, Joe, and Joe is on both sides, and Karen, Carrie, welcome. Good morning, boy. It's early for you. Leslie, and Mariana, and Mariut, and Martha, and Natney, and Rebecca, and Risto, and Tammy, and Tia, Zenaide and Zipporah. Hi, Zipporah. And Veronica. And then Michael and Joe are helping us stay stable on the other side.
And Michael,
all right.
Would you like to do a brief alignment before you get started?
Probably I wouldn't like to right now. Probably I'm just so anxious to get started. But what if I just said align? Okay, you would have that rapier-like alignment, and you'd be right there. But we're going to actually have a kind of little meditation to begin with. So I'm going to get to that in just a few minutes, and there'll be two meditative sections in this morning's work. So just do your best to find that center of knowing within yourself, and then we'll be able to discern some meanings more easily than otherwise we could. And we'll do the great invocation at the end. So I knew I wouldn't get away with no alignment, right, Michael? Okay. So going on here with everybody as if aligned. And he says that for the remainder of this section of triangles, I shall take up those triangles which are at this time and in this world cycle producing effects in the human consciousness. Now, just remember that the kind of astrology that we're doing here is really the astrology of consciousness and not the astrology of pleasant and unpleasant events. Advances in consciousness can occur with very unpleasant events, and retardation and stagnation of consciousness can occur with quite pleasant events. So this is esoteric astrology, the astrology of consciousness, and all of these triangles are that. These effects are of two kinds. The effects of the triangles, those which are general, not so easily discernible, and which affect the masses of men, and they'll affect us too, of course, and those which are more specific in their results, more tangibly effective. You see the results on the outer plane more easily, and which serve to condition the consciousness of the world aspirants, disciples, and initiates. And surely we seek to number ourselves among those. In the same way that we are still affected by ordinary rulerships, as well as by the rulerships which the non-aspiring person is not affected by. So here we do get the effects that condition the non-aspiring people of the world, just kind of going along, the masses of men, he calls them, plus additionally the meanings and effects for aspirants, disciples, and initiates. So it's not like you cut yourself off completely. You kind of subsume what you have been involved with long ago when you were not caring about spirituality, and you add to that the extra additional rulers. Okay, so we have two different kinds of triangles. All right. And one has a general effect and one a more specific discernible effect. Today, this dual movement of energies is going on, producing a slow, steady awakening of mass consciousness, so that individual self-consciousness on a large scale will be the result. And I think, if you're to think about this from the point of view of the signs of the zodiac, it would it not be the movement from Cancer to Leo, from Cancer, the ordinary mass consciousness, which doesn't mean that Cancerian people who are disciples can't have a very awakened consciousness, okay? So from Cancer to Leo, and the more rapid stimulation of the already awakened consciousness of advanced humanity. And let's at least put ourselves there, because we do really care about these matters. And now we're on the cusp of being able to enter the sphere of influence of the hierarchy, so that initiation will be achieved. Now, what I wanted to say is that so much of this centers around the energy of Leo, a very important sign, important for people who are moving out of the mass consciousness into the individualized consciousness, and on a higher turn of the spiral, important for people who are taking the first initiation. Somewhere he tells us that you normally take that initiation with the sun in Leo, or with a Leo rising. When you're born under a sign, it's the rising sign. When you're born in a sign, it's the sun sign. So
Muted.
we are dealing here with a very sophisticated, and one day very sophisticated kind of astrochemistry, the combination of subtle influences. And right now we consider chemistry a very material thing, but it will be considered psychological before so very long. So we're looking for triangles relating to a mass effect, and then to an effect upon those who are on the path. And sometimes you have a triangle with a mass effect, and it will have a different meaning, or a more elevated meaning, for disciples and those who are advancing towards initiation. All right. So the effectiveness of this dual process can be seen if it is realized that three great signs, and this is what I want to point out, Leo, Sagittarius, and Aquarius, all of them positive signs, are exceedingly active and work in close connection with each other. Now, here's where I would like to have our alignment and brief meditation. So just pull yourselves into a state where you imagine, at least, that you are subject to these three signs in some way, or that you have a deeper understanding of them. Leo, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to talk about these first. I'm going to ask you to ponder them right now. We're going to ponder these three. What, given what you know now from your full moon work, and from some of you have worked in esoteric astrology a little bit, given what you know, what is the meaning of this triangle to you? And then we'll see what Master DK has to say about it. It's always good to sort of test yourself out ahead of time. What do you know? And then how does it compare with what he says? So just let's align briefly with each of the signs. Leo, and another fire sign, Sagittarius. And Aquarius. Now, before I move on and make any comments about these three, and then look at DK's comments, is there anybody who would like to say anything about what you think could be a meaning of this triangle? You're familiar with them all because you've done full moons. I think almost everyone here has been involved in the full moons, and you have some idea of what they mean. Is there anybody that would like to say, this means this to me, this and this? Anybody? Michael, if you'd keep a watch out. See, so, reminding, yeah, okay, let's see, do we have something here? The will of the personality, Anna is saying this, Anna Sklar, and the dedication of the soul. Yeah, and especially
Unmuted.
incarnation via Sagittarius, right? Oh, that's good up to this point. All of us are, we are all of us souls on the plane of soul, which would be the higher mind, right? In other words, looking at this, you would see that on the plane of higher mind over here, maybe I'll just go backwards. The soul in its vehicle is found, the consciousness on the higher mental plane. But we're also talking about the soul in incarnation, which is the consciousness of the soul within the personality. So this is, we're on the way. We're on the way to an interpretation here. Excuse me. Okay. Anybody else would like to hazard what it means to you? Okay, Anne, and she's writing a force to express in manifestation. Oh, I'm sorry, Michael. Yeah, you can read it. Go ahead. Ann Peterson, yeah. Okay, I'll do it next time you do it. A force to express in manifestation the understanding of the I as Leo. The understanding of the I as the isolated unit. Okay, that's a start. Yeah, that's a start. Leo, you can find in every initiation from 1 to 5. Okay.
And
So
Joe's hand is raised.
Okay.
You're unmuted, Joe.
Okay, I can you hear me okay?
Yep. Gotcha.
Okay. I can say a lot. That the first thing that struck me was that we're talking about 2 fire signs and 1 air sign.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to the quote ordinary rulership. I can't remember all the esoteric rulerships.
Hmm.
But anyway, if you start with Leo, you've got Sun, Sun, Sun. If you go to Sagittarius, you're talking about Jupiter. I forget the esoteric, and then I think the hierarchical is Mars.
Correct.
And then you go over to Aquarius, and you have Saturn, and I believe it's Saturn, and then Uranus.
Hmm. Yeah, actually, it's the reverse in a way. The Aquarius starts with Uranus,
Oh, does it?
goes
Okay.
goes to Jupiter, and then goes to the moon. And the moon is veiling another Uranus, veiling another triangle. The moon, which is, I would call it, the transfiguring moon, is veiling Uranus mental, Neptune emotional, and Vulcan physical. So Uranus ends up being the most important sign there. And in the old style of astrology, the general rulership of Aquarius before Uranus was discovered was, as you say, given to Saturn. And the first decanate for advancing people is Saturn. So there's the difference between, I'm hearing stuff in the background.
Oh, I'll bet that's me. I'll mute
Okay.
myself.
Okay. Well, decanate rulers are different from sign rulers. But I think the important thing here is, I mean, I can give it to you really quickly. Of course, it's the Sun veiling Jupiter for Leo, the Sun veiling Neptune for Leo esoteric, and the Sun veiling Uranus for Leo initiate. The three veils are very important in Leo. So generally, he's taking Leo and just starting with it in a general sense. And so far, what people have said is correct. It is the sign of the individual, and at first, it's quite isolated. There's some kind of, I don't know, isolated individuality, or uh, he has three different kinds of isolation. The topmost one is isolated unity, and then there's isolated individuality. There's one more. Maybe if someone can find it for me. I think I always forget that one. Isolated identity. Maybe that begins with it, and then isolated individuality, and then isolated unity. Well, when you're looking at this triangle, which is Leo, Sagittarius, and Aquarius, he's in general beginning with what it means to everybody. Basically, you are the individual and you have emerged from mass consciousness. Okay. Now, then something happens. And let's see, I just want to check Anna here. She's saying something before I go on with it. The solar system rotates around Alcyone. Now, this is, of course, interesting, Anna. We say so, we esotericists. I've checked this out with some astronomers, and they say, oh, it really couldn't. It says it couldn't because the mass and the distance and all of that is incorrect. Well, I just tend to go with the esotericism, and I say, yes, our solar system and 6 others along with it revolve around the central Pleiades, Alcyone being the most central star. Okay, and our system crosses it in 2 points, Leo and Aquarius. Well, that would be very interesting. That's an interesting thing. And of course, these are the rulers of the new age. Aquarius first, and then there will be high individuals who are Leonian sort of dictators and leaders Actually, we had an example with Alice Bailey. So she was prominent as a Leonian leader in what attempted to be an Aquarian group. We have Anne Veronica here saying the Sagittarius takes us one-pointedly to the goal and helps the conscious, and I would say self-conscious Leo that is focused on his personality to start to have universal consciousness. And I would just say Sagittarius really begins the journey. If you look at in the book with what Sagittarius is associated with, associated with the first two initiations, 1 and 2, particularly. So you become the one-pointed disciple and you're oriented towards what? See, so you begin as the individual and pretty much the world revolves around you. Then you go into the first initiation under Leo, which is in a way the sun veiling Neptune. Why Neptune? Because Neptune is the Christ. There's this, very strong affinity between that great planet and the great Lord. And who is the initiator at the first two initiations that Sagittarius has so much to do with? It is the Christ. So the sun in that case is veiling Neptune, but it has further to go. Now you can, I think you'll find if you listen to or read my book on the egoic lotus that you can associate every sign of the zodiac with every initiation one way or another. You can really do that. Some of them are very prominent, like let's say Scorpio has a terrific connection with the second initiation, and Capricorn with the third. But Capricorn is also all 5, and Scorpio is the first 4 initiations in various ways. So we have to have flexibility of mind in this. So we're on our way somewhere. Where are we on our way to? Who wants to say something about group consciousness?
Michael, Joe on
Yeah,
the staff
Michael.
side has written, all 3 signs are expressing Ray 5 in some respect. Is there then a progression from Leo the Sun in all 3 positions? Sagittarius, 9th house, higher education, speaks to the second aspect to consciousness, and Aquarius, maybe the 5th ray, expresses the highest expression. Just a thought.
It's a good observation. Yeah, it's a good observation. And one of the things that has to be understood about this triangle is that Leo at the moment, and he doesn't say when it changes, is the main distributor of the 5th ray, the main distributor. It's not the main distributor of the first ray. Its 2 rays are 1st and 5th. So Aries is the main distributor of the 1st ray at this time. But what the 5th ray does is it makes initiation possible, basically. DK says, always look at the 5th ray as the power that can bring about initiation. So at first, it's not quite so benevolent because the 5th ray brings out separation, cleavage, isolation. The 5th ray rules the law of cleavages and, separating the individual from all other individuals, and that's the beginning. But then later with Leo, the 5th ray brings in a new form of higher light. And I think, well, oh gosh, this ramifies and goes off into interesting things. Let's just say that Sagittarius is a sign connected with higher education, definitely, and with a broad and general perspective. However, the 5th ray is relatively muted with respect to Sagittarius, as is the 4th ray, compared to sorry, compared to the sixth ray, which is the major sign, a major ray distributed by Sagittarius at this time. Nevertheless, this idea of exploration, astronomical, of the earth, whatever, and finding out all about things that had never crossed your horizon before, that is the fifth ray in Sagittarius. Now, as for what the fifth ray will be, in Aquarius, DK tells us that it will not be long, and Leo will no longer be the major distributor of the fifth ray. It will be Aquarius. He doesn't tell us when. And the modern inventions of the New Age, many of which will be very subtle, wireless, as it were, action at a distance, these will be the gifts of Aquarius, the fifth ray's approach to subtle energies. And we can already see that, happening. As a matter of fact, a lot of difficulty can happen at first, given that, in the old days, radium, Aquarius, fifth ray, and the people associated with it are handling the radium with their bare hands, and they die. So he says there's a lot of danger at first in contacting these levels of the Deva kingdom. But eventually it'll all come under control. Now, we have individuality, right? We have one pointed elevation, one pointed discipleship, a higher target than the individual, don't we? We have a broader perspective, don't we, when we deal with Sagittarius? It's one of the major philosophical, mathematical, perspectivizing signs. That is, when it's not being a religious fanatic. There's a lot of different ways that Sagittarius can function. Now, what about Aquarius? What is it leading to? Does anybody have? And here we go. And I think Anne Veronica is basically saying it, that it's the beginning of universal consciousness. Now, Aquarius is very interesting. You generally don't have it so much associated with the first initiation, except that the soul is group conscious, and stepping into the kingdom of souls and the hall of wisdom can be associated with Aquarius at the first initiation. As far as the second initiation goes, it is also, yeah, okay, someone put that in. Regarding the second initiation, Aquarius has to do with fellowship, with an active and mutually enhancing group consciousness, which is very much to the fore. And you will find, if you study some of the fraternal systems like Masonry, that there is a degree called the fifth, there's a degree called the second degree, it's called the FC degree. DK talks about it, fellow craft. I mean, he does talk about it, so I can talk about it. And that is a very Aquarian process to which the advancing group is subjected. However, where Aquarius is really coming into its own is at the third, fourth, and fifth initiations. So what's interesting here is that Sagittarius points, with its first and second initiation, points the way to Aquarius at the third degree, Aquarius at the fourth degree, and Aquarius at mastership as well. Leo comes in again at the fifth degree, fifth sign, the lion, the master. So Aquarius and Leo together co-join at the fifth initiation. Well, actually, we're not dealing so much with initiations right now. There's a lot of interesting interplay in all of this, but Leo is even connected at the fourth initiation, but usually as the victim. In other words, Leo rules the causal body, and the causal body is destroyed by two kinds of things. One is a more universal love, and the other is the scorpionic death to form idea. So Leo stands in the middle and then, suffers as a result. But this is all another subject. Basically, what we're dealing with is the movement from individuality, which is can be a fairly isolated state, and then we're moving toward the soul as Sagittarius is orienting us to become the one-pointed disciple, seeing things from a higher point of view, and finally, the truly group conscious individual who will be the initiate. All members of hierarchy are obviously initiates. And the interesting thing about it is the sign that rules hierarchy is Aquarius. So we are being oriented from isolation towards the hierarchy in which we are part of this greater group. And that's the one meaning of this triangle. Now, as far as average humanity goes, it has a bit of a lower meaning. People raise their values a bit, they see more, and they learn that society advances because we all help each other. This is Aquarius. Rather, we're not now talking about the hierarchy, we're just talking about the fact that socially we live a productive life. Now let's see what Master DK has to say about this. Yeah, but I think you nailed it. You all got it, and of course, when you are a disciple and you have one of these signs prominent in your chart, you have to understand what it means to you at your initiatory level, because all disciples are preparing for initiation. And the true aspirant, he says, the true aspirant has taken the first initiation. So, if you're a Leo or you have strong Leo, are you taking the first degree or not at all? Are you somehow letting the radiance of the soul into the astral body, which would be much more along the second degree line? Or are you standing in a state of glorification before your three vehicles that are prostrate? They're prostrating themselves in the desert, and the symbol of the three vehicles, which are humbling themselves before the glorified soul, which is Leo also. So you can understand the role of Leo at the transfiguration. Or are you undergoing the death of the causal body? So many people think that they are. They're just having a tough time. It's not that at all. Or are you a master? See, Leo is coming in at all those levels, and you would stand at the acme of the human kingdom as a Leo, Leo contributing to your mastership. Well, obviously, we're preparing for one of those five, and more realistically, probably the very top of what we're preparing for is the glorification, the transfiguration. Now let's see what DK says. Get this out of the way. Okay. Okay. three great signs are active today and are exceedingly active and working in close relation to each other. So that's where I have the highlight going on here. So the Lord, what it really means is that the lords of the constellations are working very cooperatively with each other. Let's just say that planets are great beings and they cooperate with each other in a group formation. And so are the lords of the constellations. They are still greater beings and they are cooperating with each other. They are affecting humanity as a whole. They are the three signs whose energies are affecting humanity as a whole. Now, as we say this, try to see this triangle around you in expression. You know, you read the news, you think, you see what people are doing. Try to see that this is actually working. Okay, affecting humanity as a whole, as a kingdom in nature. And by the way, these kingdoms in nature, interestingly, they're not just of the earth. The kingdoms of nature are found in their own way in relation to all the planets. That's why, you know, Venus has its own type of humanity. Maybe it has other kingdoms at work too. Certainly has a kingdom of souls. Okay, Leo, the sign of the self-conscious individual. Now think what that means. To be really self-conscious, you know, it's also called the sign of sensitivity because you're very sensitive to how everything reacts upon you, and you really begin to know your own values, who you are not, what you like, what you don't like, your nature in comparison with others. It affects humanity as a whole, as a kingdom of nature. Leo, the self-conscious individual is potent in its mass effect. And today, through the stress of circumstance, remember the 1930s, this is when this is written, through the stress of circumstance and the dire result of certain events, like the war, the big war, 1914 to 1945, thousands of men and women, and this is the important part, are stepping out of the ranks of the mass conscious herd, obviously being led or being hounded by the sheepdogs, you know. Thousands of men and women are stepping out of the ranks of mass conscious herd and out of the deep sleep of irresponsibility and becoming aware of themselves as detached functioning entities, whereas in actual mass consciousness you may not distinguish yourself so much from the tribe, you know, tribalism. And we have a problem with that today. Many people are still tribal in their consciousness, and what applies to their tribe applies to them, and that's who they are. They have not established themselves in their own distinctness. But now I want to point out something that's hidden in this sentence. The deep sleep of irresponsibility. So how do you tell when the soul is really beginning to have its effect? And remember, the solar angel and Leo, they do go together. The way you do it, he says, it's not something you prefer necessarily. It's this growing sense of responsibility that signals that you're entering the stage of soul alignment, and that you are really beginning to function as a soul in incarnation. Well, apparently stepping out of the mass, and it's I do it because everybody does it, attitude, into the individuality of I do it because of who I am is a big step towards responsibility. Of course, you can be terribly irresponsible too, as some people are very, very selfish under Leo. But eventually, they straighten that out, and they are responsible to the higher law and to the soul. And then we can truly say they are becoming led in that way. So, these two signs, Leo and Aquarius, they keep on alternating, as you climb the ladder of evolution. So, Saturn is the planet of responsibility, isn't it? And remember the triangle. Well, it's a triangle, basically. It goes like this: Great Bear, Sirius, Pleiades. Then under that, under the Great Bear comes Leo. Under Sirius comes Pisces. That's the second ray line. And under Capricorn comes under the Pleiadian line. It's the third ray aspect. Then come the planets. Saturn comes under Leo. And Uranus, strangely enough, comes under Pisces and Sirius. And Mercury comes under the Pleiades and Capricorn, and then Mercury. So Saturn, even though it's a tough planet in Leo, it does provide you with this very great triangle on the first ray: Great Bear, Leo, Saturn, and then comes Shambhala and your head center and your base of the spine, and we remember maybe that big triangle. So Saturn is responsibility, and when you take the first initiation, oftentimes under Leo or in Leo, but not exclusively so. There's a bunch of signs connected with the first initiation. You can justify anything. Aquarius, is another one in a way. Aquarius, with its group consciousness, takes you into the realm of the group conscious soul. And that's why all these, 12-step programs, which are so Aquarian, are really helping people get into the first initiation or to demonstrate that they are there. So we're stepping out of the deep sleep of irresponsibility. We're becoming responsible to our true nature in Leo. And then we're going on our journey towards, in Sagittarius, towards the beginning of universality in Aquarius. Now, if you have one of those signs, you have to figure out how it's working for you in terms of this triangle. Okay, so that's what he says about Leo. Emerging into the responsible, self-aware human being. Sagittarius is powerfully affecting the world aspirants and leading them towards those attitudes of mind which will produce an unswerving allegiance to the spiritual values and an unalterable adherence to the good of humanity. Now, even if you're not, a true aspirant, Sagittarius is going to lift you towards a higher sense of values, a greater vision towards which you will orient your life. So it has an effect, even if a person is not taking the first or second initiation. It's an uplifting Jupiterian sign. So, yeah. So it's the stage of aspiration no matter what higher thing we are aiming for. Once we have the power of being a Leo, we got to do something with that power. And we orient it towards the achievement of a goal. Now, what about Aquarius? What he says here. Aquarius is, with equal potency, affecting the world disciples and initiates, leading them to world service on a large scale. Now, we're also talking about the whole of humanity here, not just the disciples and initiates, producing group activity and that usefulness which is the hallmark of the pledged disciple. Okay, so can Aquarius help those who are not yet aspirants and disciples? Yes, it can. It can do that. Now, I'm going to try to, I don't know exactly what I'll do here. Maybe I'll do it that way. Okay. So now we have an example of how this triangle can work. If you have Aquarius, Sun, Aquarius rising sign, Aquarius stellium, you have to figure out how it's working for you. And he says, if you're at that point, a disciple or initiate, you will get into larger service. Maybe not yet on a world scale where you are a world disciple of the third degree, but at least you'll expand your range of service and you'll be taking a step towards universality. Okay? And he also tells that Aquarius is leading towards pledged discipleship. When does pledged discipleship come in? And somewhere between the first and second initiation, and maybe a little closer to the second, you make a pledge, you hold to it one-pointedly, as Sagittarius tends to do, becoming the one-pointed disciple, and your sphere of service widens, and you use the radiation of your ever more accomplished selfhood to serve those that you come in contact with, and that's the Leo stage. The influence of these three constellations, DK says, is felt through their esoteric planets. Now, someone was asking about a Sagittarius. It is the Earth, and it's a sign that is helping the Earth become a sacred planet. That is the esoteric ruler of Sagittarius. So it is Jupiter, Earth, and then Mars. Okay, felt through the esoteric planets and the mass movement in consciousness for which Leo is responsible. And he says, we're really moving into that now. A bunch of individuals are emerging, bringing with them their own problems, the problems of feeling too self-important. We call it egotism, okay? So that is the stage, and in the fifth petal of your egoic lotus, after you're ever so proud of yourself, your tower falls and you fall out of it, as in the tarot, and then you're willing to be, after being humbled, the humble aspirant on his way to the discipleship and the first initiation. The fifth petal is a big experience lasting a long time. The earlier the petal in the egoic lotus, the longer the number of years spent in cultivating its particular qualities. So that first petal lasts forever, millions of years. And by the time you're at the ninth petal, things are really opening up fast. Everything accelerates, everything winds up in that sense more rapidly. I call it a tightening spiral. A tightening spiral, it's a slower motion out here, and as you get, like that. It winds up very fast. So the influence of these three constellations is felt through their esoteric planets, and the mass movement in consciousness for which Leo is responsible can be noted as possible, even by the novice, when he realizes that the ruling planets in Leo are, from all three angles, exoteric, esoteric, and hierarchical, the sun. The sun has three different meanings, and the whole idea of a triple sun in the horoscope does exist. The sun, which is the personality, your sun sign. The second sun is your rising sign. It's called the sun of possibility. And then the point opposite your sun sign, it doesn't have a name except it's associated with the monad. We might call it the sun of, well, still more remote possibility. It brings you up into the realm of the Father in heaven and shows you how to get there. If you're at that stage where you can utilize it for that purpose. Otherwise, that point opposite your sun sign, like if you were a Taurus, it would be Scorpio. If you were a Scorpio, it would be Taurus. See, that point opposite your sun sign shows you how you can evoke the very highest possibility for yourself in this particular life. And it balances your sun sign. It might not be the monad. Okay, probably isn't, but it is a triangle. Sun sign, rising sign, point opposite the sun. Very important. So anyway, and another thing too, when he says it's the triple sun, it is the triple sun, but in a way, the sun is never the real ruler. The sun is the star. The sun veils Jupiter for the average person. The sun veils Neptune for the spiritually inclined person. The sun veils I said Neptune, right? The sun veils Uranus for the initiate. The mass movement towards individual self-consciousness, now think about this, and society today, is today enormously intensified, as is the paralleling individual movement towards initiation. From the mass to the individual, from the individual to the initiate of the first degree, and all of that taking place in Leo, which gives you the power, because it's got a lot of first ray, and it has a lot of consciousness about it, sensitivity, to move forward one-pointedly on the path of fulfilling your desires, and hopefully they will be the higher desires, aspiration. Everything is so very dependent on the individual. How he or she uses these energies really depends on the condition of the causal body and how much advancement has really been made. And then you can take those energies of this triangle, let us say, and have them make sense for the individual. Like in your case, Leo means this. In your case, Leo means that, and so forth. So it's not enough to say that the triangle will always work the same way. Now, if you happen to have 2/3 of a triangle, or even the entire triangle in your chart, it can really, with planets in those signs, or the rays accentuating those signs, it will point the way towards the kind of progress that we have been discussing, but you will have to see how it works for you. If you're an average human being just emerging from mass consciousness and just beginning to have some spirituality about you, it will work in a certain way. If you're already an accepted disciple for several lives, as a number of DK's students were, it will have quite a more elevated meaning. If you're an initiate, it will have still a higher meaning. So always evaluating where you stand more or less on the path of evolution is an important interpretive method of orientation towards your chart. Okay, I think that's probably enough for the moment. Because, yeah, we have another triangle coming up here, and it will be interesting. We'll try to take that up next time. And I'm going to move this back because I didn't go as far as I had hoped. Never do. So we have basically looked at an important triangle for the masses. And when I say the masses, I mean, people who pretty much living as their personality and are not aware that there is a higher power, that there is a higher of the pairs of opposites. They don't really know that. They may believe in some vague God transcendent. That can happen even in the second pedal a long time before. However, the masses of people have not emerged into the responsibility of individuality. Not yet. And yet it's happening rapidly at this time, bringing with it, as I said, its own problems and its own type of frictions, if you will. Okay. So this is going to be, I don't know, 485 or something, where we're beginning next time.
Last
Yeah.
I saw was 485.
Yeah, that's it. Very good. All right. Well, look, it's more important that we go into these things in depth so you understand the various layers of interpretation that are possible. If you want to apply triangles to its real value in astrology and vice versa, you just have to know more or less where you stand and what you're trying to do. Obviously, the different lives give you different opportunities. Humanity is going through a terrible struggle, right? At the moment. And it's not just the epidemic, it's in general. And we're going to see that. Why? Because it's preparing for the first initiation. And what are the two planets which are particularly found in the approach to the, I hope I said first initiation, to the first initiation. And they are two first ray planets. They are Vulcan, the ruler of Taurus, and Pluto, the ruler of Pisces. And if we think we're going to have an easy time for the individual or for humanity, when Vulcan and Pluto are ruling, we have another thing coming. Drastic eliminations and purifications are going to be undergone. And any person hovering around the first degree is going to realize that in their life. Now, if you read Master DK carefully, he can help us make this transition and move towards the second degree in a safe and sane and more timely manner. So it's a great advantage to have his guidance. All right, so now let's, I realize we've only been dealing with one triangle, but we have been dealing with individuality, reorientation, and group consciousness. in a sense, with those three signs. Does anybody have any questions or statements you would like to make? We've already had a couple that have helped describe what the triangle could mean, and I think you've been on it quite well. It's good. Anybody want to speak, or maybe if you have one of these signs potent in your chart, it means something to you in the context of what we have been talking about. If that's so, then, and you want to mention what it means to you, you can do that. So we'll be looking now for either written comments or spoken comments. See, here's the thing. You can use anything, any sign of the zodiac, any constellation, to achieve a phase of any step. I could probably, and I have in this book on video book, I've probably gone through the different initiations and petals and said what can be gathered from having a particular sign. If I want to take the first initiation, Aries will get me started. Taurus will bring something of the light of the soul into the situation and help me detach, because it's ruled by Vulcan at the stage where one could begin to take the first initiation as you step into the Hall of Wisdom. And Gemini is already associated with the first initiation, and he talks about it just a little bit, and it has to do with the higher and the lower pairs of opposites. So that is a place where we become necessarily aware of the higher power and the lower force. Cancer will tell you what you're emerging out of, but it will also give you more sensitivity towards others in a group conscious sense, because Saturn is Cancer is very inclusive. And it's mass consciousness in one way, you want to get out of that, but it's also treating people with greater sensitivity and the sense that we are all part of home and one whole. Leo, of course, is the major sign of the first initiation, because it allows you to stand forth as a spiritual individual, maybe for the first time. Up to that time, you've been struggling to do that. Virgo is another one of the first initiation signs, the birth of the Christ in the heart. And of course, Leo rules the heart too, right? But Virgo is the manger, and the animal and the man are united in a more productive relationship. Virgo allows you to give birth to the individual Christ, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman. It doesn't make any difference, because as a soul we are both, and we give birth to the individual Christ. Later in Aries, it'll be the cosmic Christ, or some higher example of the Christ consciousness. Libra brings us into the area of control of the sacral center for the first initiation, and its elevation to the throat, and also a kind of right human relations enters with Libra. Scorpio, Pluto, struggle, relinquishment, renunciation, a drastic experience, and testing you on all the physical appetites as you are going toward the first initiation. Sagittarius, you are oriented towards that higher goal which leads you out of personality preoccupation through the power of aspiration. Capricorn, it's Christmas time and we're being born in the manger. Capricorn is particularly associated with that first Christmas, which is the birth of the Christ within the animal nature, and it's also a lot of discipline which you need. Aquarius brings you the sense of the group, and you're no longer such an isolated type. You're relating more and more to your fellow human beings in Aquarius, and new possibilities dawn. And Pisces, you're stepping off the mutable cross. A transition is the very last sign on the mutable cross. You're stepping off it into the fixed cross of the soul, which begins in the hall of wisdom, which begins at the first initiation. So what I've just done is I've gone through all 12 signs of the zodiac very briefly in relation to the first initiation, and I could do that, with greater or less effectiveness for the second, the third, the fourth, even the fifth, etc., speculatively and all that. So whatever initiation for which you are being prepared, whether it's in this life, the next, or the next, and all true disciples are being prepared for initiation, you can use your horoscope, and especially your sun, rising sign, and point opposite, to move towards the fulfillment of the requirements of that initiation. Okay, I hope
Michael,
I'm clear. Yeah.
Carrie writes, would it be of interest to the group to discuss my configuration, which is Leo sun sign, Scorpio rising sign, Aquarius opposite sun sign conjunct?
Well, I think they're all interesting, Carrie. It's a very individual matter. It's in a sense, a private matter, how you place yourself, in relation to your master or whatever inner guidance there is. But in general, what happens here, just as a generality, with Leo, there is the creative individual, and sometimes a person who an energy which is more or less centered on itself and needs to expand the concept of self. I'm just speaking in general, not about you, but just in general. And at first, the self is the isolated individual. I am, and a bunch of people are there, but it's a movement out of mass consciousness. It's good. Then I am that, as we know, it's the soul consciousness. It's the beginning of saying, well, look, I know myself as a personality, but there is a higher self here, and I'm more that than this. I am that higher self, and I feel it, and it's making its way through infusion into my personality. But here's what happens. What you're describing right now is a fifth petal process, or at least for a lot of people, it is that. There's tremendous struggle in the fifth petal. Now, I don't know if I could, that's the trouble. I kind of forget the page. It's in the Treatise on Cosmic Fire. And, something makes me want to say about page 843 or something, but that's only, that's just a wild guess. And he basically tells you in this section what a big struggle the fifth petal is. Why do I say the fifth petal? Okay, and I'm going to elaborate on that in just a second, because it really is that. Okay, so I don't know, it's like fishing. It's either well, this is an important page, all right, but it gives us the different kinds of egoic lotuses. If I could just find, see, those are all of the names of egoic lotuses, and they're very important, preceded by this, maybe it's afterwards. It's somewhere around here where he deals with this. They're very interesting, and he classifies human beings, and I've really gone into that extensively in that book. And I wonder if I don't want to take too much time here, but let's just say, I wonder if he actually fifth petal, if he does it that way, or he calls it by something else. He might call it by something else, you know. Prior to the unfoldment of the fifth petal, okay. It's a very important petal. When the fifth petal is unfolded, that's the first initiation, and I'm not going to get it. Okay, I'm just going to try one more place in the 530s and see if I can get that. But he goes petal after petal, and I think I'm just going to have to say what it is rather than give you the quotation. Maybe someone can find where he goes petal by petal. If someone knows where it is, I don't have time to do that right now. But basically, it's this: that if you start with Aries as petal number 1, then the fifth petal is Leo. Okay? Obviously, you're just counting. But the knowledge petals are ruled by Earth, and they always start with the cardinal signs. So you have Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. They go from cardinal fixed to mutable. Now, the love petals of the egoic lotus are ruled by water. Start with the cardinal sign, Cancer, fixed sign, Scorpio. That's the fifth petal. So the two signs involved with the struggles of the fifth petal are Leo and Scorpio. I mean, there are other ways to count too, but Leo and Scorpio are very much there. So whoever has this, and you have it, of course, like I say, you can generalize about this, but it's depends on where a person stands. What it means is, let's just say, for the average person who's entering the fifth petal as the area of unfoldment, and probably for a number of us, the fifth petal unfoldment lies behind, it means that Scorpio kills out the undesirable Leo tendencies that occur in the beginning of the fifth petal. And if it's later in the fifth petal, when one is taking the first initiation, the completely unfolded fifth petal is found with the first initiation, and Scorpio gives you the power to triumph through that initiation. Now, there are other ways we can do this. We can continue to advance the story. We can look at the solar angel as Leo having an effect upon the astral body. at the second initiation, so that the astral body becomes much less murky, much more radiant, more clear, more expressive of the soul. And Scorpio will be the major sign of triumph for that process, because wherever you find Scorpio for the first 3 initiations, there's a big test going on. And Scorpio is eliminating the obstacles. And in this case, Leo is showing the kind of radiation that can be achieved. So Scorpio clears away any obscurity from the radiant sun. If one is undergoing the third initiation, it would be the possibility of transfiguration. A special application of the mind would come in under Scorpio, and a person would use Scorpio to clear the way towards a type of glorification, whatever that glorification might mean. And then we could take it on, but generally I don't go beyond the 3rd degree in terms of what might be relevant to all of us, because I don't think any one of us is taking the 4th degree. We'd be doing maybe something different. Now, if a person is becoming monadically, well, first of all, just the general individual, he's moving from so much concern about his own nature to considering his group as his kind of focus of identity. In other words, putting it simply, I am I, or I am the group. And Aquarius would counterbalance this intense individualism. And it just keeps moving with the strengthening of group consciousness through Aquarius, opposite the sun. Now, if we ever get to that point where we actually have the monad operating, then we're moving from, because that would mean you have a lot of soul development already, it would mean we're moving from soul infusion. Maybe you'd even start that whole thing around the late 2nd or 3rd degree, to increased universalization. And Aquarius is the sign of universality. So for the person who had developed that far, Aquarius wouldn't just be, oh, well, I'm associated with the group and, I have a part to play. Nor would it be, well, we're all really getting along here now and we're all creative together in the group. No, it would be something even more if the monad were relevant, which we don't know, in any of our cases. We have to really examine that carefully. It would take us into the realm of oneness and universality, of unity in variety. It would reveal the unity in all the multiplicity. So what I've just done is I've laid out a couple of different scenarios for different levels of evolution and how to interpret this configuration of Sun in Leo, Scorpio rising, and Aquarius being the point opposite the sun sign. And I would say for most of us, I know certainly for myself, if I consider my Cancer rising sign, that, also square to Aries sun, that relationship is really the important one. It's a square just like yours is. And if I can understand what the Cancer rising sign means in relation to the sun sign, then I have probably extracted the main relationship. Every once in a while, I say, okay, now I'm interested in the monad, blah, blah, blah. What is the Libra opportunity in this life for monadic influence? And I pause and I think and I think. But realistically, the rising sign would be the greater probability, okay? And whenever we have Leo and Scorpio, we have something here. Now, one thing I can show, because I think I know where it is, famous last words. I'm going to put it here in Esoteric Astrology and turn to page 332. And I think you'll immediately know how this applies to yourself. And of course, that's your business. So we're going to look at a special relationship, and we're going to see Leo seeks release in Scorpio. Okay? That has to be interpreted. And then let's go down to Scorpio. And this one, I think you will be able to relate to strongly. Scorpio stages the release of Leo. And right there is the hint that I think would be of value to explore. Okay. All right, I think it may be time. Let's see, wait a second. Is there anything else, Michael?
I am not seeing any hands raised or other questions, comments in the chat box.
Right. I wouldn't blame anybody for not putting in a question when they know that the answer is going to take a half hour. All right. So anyway, hopefully, Carrie, that gives some kind of approach, let's just say an approach. Everybody has a unique causal body. And the causal body tells you exactly what you have done and have not done. And then the causal body adapts the ambient available energies to your own unique situation. So you'd have to meditate on what does it mean for Scorpio, the rising sign, to stage the release of Leo. That's, that would be the theme for meditation. In my own case, I'm very partial to one of the Cancerian mantrams, the whole is seen as one. I don't know if it's here or not. I can't, it's somewhere, but the whole is seen as one is one of those, now there it is. I'm very partial to this particular mantra. And I know what that can mean, or I think I know, or I'm trying to know, when I compare the usual Aries approach, which is extremely direct and fairly, forceful. What happens when the rising sign takes over through one of these mantrams and so forth? And then maybe I'll know something about which way I'm supposed to go. And let's see. Here is Joe. Okay, yeah, right. Joe says my half-hour response was very helpful. Okay. Well, like yourself, I search for the relevant kind of answer or information as I proceed. It's incredibly complex how a particular form adapts the ambient available energies. Everyone's going to be different. And the main thing is in meditation to find the way that you specifically, with your unique causal body development, can use these energies. And that's a meditative process. We can generalize and say, oh my goodness, here's Leo and Scorpio, and you're taking the fourth initiation, and the causal body is going to be destroyed by the energies of Scorpio. I mean, that is true if one is standing at that high stage of evolution. And that's a generality. But then you have to bring it down into your psyche. And then it will have a specific application to you, not just a general application like it has to everybody, but specific to you. Okay, friends. So thank you for your participation, your questions, and I guess, maybe if I'm to look for something we can harvest from this discussion, I would say we're all on our way from a smaller sphere produced by a particular point of tension. See, a point of tension will produce a sphere of consciousness. So we're all on our way from a particular sphere of consciousness, be it low or relatively high, to a much wider sphere, broader in its diameter, in its circumference. We're still going to have circumference, we're still going to have perimeter. We're not breaking the final ring pass knot here, but it'll be bigger in Aquarius than it is at first in Leo. Now later, the two signs will blend, Aquarius, Leo, into one kind of sign, and it will be a great universality in which your identity is entirely invested. You are the universality you perceive. How did you get there? You took a trip. And that trip, you rode a horse. Sagittarius, or maybe a centaur. Sagittarius will take you from the lesser sphere to the greater sphere, and then Leo will catch up with you at the greater sphere and blend its I-ness into the whole thing. And you can say with the Vedantists, I am that, or you can say thou art that, or I am that I am, or I am that and that I am. You can say all those things to yourself, and you will know that you are a much bigger, greater, more pervasive entity than you thought. And you can say, well, is that practical? And I would say, I think so. I think it's practical because it gives you greater intimacy with reality until you discover that, yeah, I am that I am, or thou art that. You discover that in the Aquarius Leo polarity. And at least we move from the individual to the group, at least, crossing the Sagittarian bridge. So here we'll close with the great invocation. And we'll realize that one day, we will stand on whatever particular mountain it is for us, and we will see the passage of the energies. And I think if I can find it very briefly, I will be able to show you what I mean. The word is, I think, let's see. Here it is. So just bear this in mind. It has been said, it has been occultly said, okay, that, okay, let me just get that straight. That a vision of these powers, the different planetary lives and constellations, okay, that a vision of these powers and their many weaving lines seen as rivers and streams of light is given to the initiate from the mountaintop of Capricorn once the summit has been reached. It is at the Transfiguration initiation that this vision appears before the eyes of the astounded disciple. And he goes on and talks about Moses and Mount Sinai and so forth. Anyway, page 167 of Esoteric Astrology. And when we study triangles in this way, and the weaving that all of these triangles cause, we have this to look forward to, that we really will understand these rivers and streams of light. And it will be an amazing sight. And meanwhile, we're on our way to being able to apprehend all this and appreciate all this by our study of the triangles, and especially here in relation to esoteric astrology. There are also ray triangles, of course, and so 2 ways, and chakric triangles, so maybe 3 ways of studying triangles of rays, triangles of astrological factors, triangles of chakras, and they overlap and intersect. So let's do the great invocation together, and then this will be converted, and it will come up on Makara, and gradually things are being put up on YouTube too. So you have plenty to study, plenty to study. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Lots of love, many blessings tonight. Normal triangle work, the practical application in our triangles. And then tomorrow morning, at least here in Europe morning, identify as being. And we'll continue trying to identify as being. That's what we'll do. And I think in the chat box are the, just copy those things out, are the links that you need to attend. I'm sure you can get there. And maybe one day we'll all achieve this isolated unity on the fifth ray. It's a consummation devoutly to be wished. Okay, have a nice day, have a nice evening, good night, whatever. And we'll be back in touch before you know it. Bye-bye for now.